Bitcoin price shot up overnight, $65,900, because a peace deal was made and it might be for real this time. And that has been triggering the price of oil to slide significantly. Coincidentally, all of this just in advance of the FOMC meeting that is happening in just 2 days' time. And that news caused this number to increase by 1%, so now there's a 3.4% chance of a rate cut at the next meeting. But Trump's strategy here is pretty obvious. Make it so Kevin Walsh, the new Fed chair, can't blame the ongoing conflict for the reason that the inflation is still pretty aggressive, to make it more justifiable to cut interest rates this year, despite the entire world recently hiking interest rates. And on Wednesday, it's decision time for America. But until Wednesday, it looks like Bitcoin's price is heading to this peak zone of liquidity here, about $67,000. And I warned of that in yesterday's video. But the thing is, I'm still massively short on Bitcoin, over $10 million. And I'm not convinced that this jump in price is going to be sustained. But my opinion doesn't matter. What matters is the data. And I've prepared all of the data to go through in this video. And all I want you to do is go down here, press the like button, turn on channel notifications by pressing all, and that's it. That's your end of the bargain. So let's begin. On Friday last week, we had a net inflow of 1,350 Bitcoin into the ETFs. Predominantly that was covered by BlackRock. But every single one of the ETFs pretty much added on Friday. And if you were following the channel, you'll know that that was my cue to close my short position and open a long position. But I took profit early on the long position because I wanted to enjoy the weekend and approach this week with a fresh brain, because I know that this week is going to be a very important one. And when we look over at the data right now, when it comes to the funding rates, you'll see that so much of the funding is still green here on Bitcoin, and that suggests that short positions are currently trapped. And that's a topic that we'll cover on the liquidation heat maps in 2 minutes time. But when we look over at the Bitcoin volume overview, you can see $4.31 billion of spot volume versus $49.1 billion of futures volume. Futures volume clearly dominating the market, but spot volume making up about 9.5% of the overall volume. That is higher than the 6.12% that it's been averaging over the course of the past month, but it's not above the 10% that would make a clear difference to the overall structure of the market and say that spot is leading. Because the thing that we've got to contend with is actually futures volume went up 63% today, which is double the amount of volume that what spot went up. So we can see from that that the futures volume is leading the market, and currently futures buy volume is quite significant, but also spot buy volume is quite significant. However, if you're a member of the Chart Advantage Telegram, which has now got 3,500 members, and you can join that by going down to the video description, clicking on it, scrolling down a little bit and clicking on the link that says My Free Telegram, you'll know that I've been building out this massive database of information on nicotib.live, which is Bitcoin spelled backwards.live. Because as nice as CoinGlass's tool is, I think I can build a better one by linking in more data, because the more data you have, the more accuracy you get. And when I've connected twice the amount of data than what CoinGlass has got, we actually come out with a different positioning here, because this is also taking into account USDC, whereas these charts don't take into account USDC. And when you take into account USDC, you can actually see that actually over the past 24 hours, we have net selling pressure here. That would be on the futures, and on the spot, it's actually spot pressure that's pressuring the market upwards. And when we look on the 12-hour, we get a very similar story. Spot is the one pressuring the market upwards, and futures is pretty neutral. And that data is more consistent with what I've been watching happen on the market. Because when we look at the Bitcoin exchange balances, you see that in the past 24 hours, that balance fell by about 10,000 Bitcoin. Whereas when we look at the USDT exchange balances, we can see that actually that rose in the past 24 hours. Just this indicates spot buying pressure. But when we're looking over the long short volume over the past 24 hours, what we tend to find throughout all of this data is we have complete parity. And then that begs the question that some of the most popular data sites in the industry are not showing you all of the information, and you've got to question why. Why are they obscuring that? These people have got more money, more funding and everything than what I do building my own data site. So why are they not presenting all of the data? That's more of a rhetorical question that I don't know the answer to. And either way, it doesn't matter to me, because I'm pretty good at spotting the anomalies in the data, removing them, so we've got an accurate data set to look at. But back to the data, we can see here spot volume has been in significant decline ever since the announcement, and when you have a pump up and it lacks volume at the top to sustain it, generally it comes back down. I don't expect that in this case. You see, when we look at the Bitcoin Historical Volatility Index, what we tend to see when we get to this level is a continuation of said trend, but we also continue to see a lot of consolidation at these levels and a lot of consistently 2% a day Bitcoin movements. And so I think that this will continue to go sideways until after the FOMC meeting. To get a proper view on the market, we need to check in on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map to see the structure of the market. When we look at the market structure at the moment, on the 1 month Bitcoin liquidation heat map, you can see below $60,000, massive levels of liquidity and liquidation. Same at $50,000. However, we're starting to make this range up here at $80,000 look a lot more attractive. So we drop down a time frame and now we're on the weekly chart. And on the weekly chart, you can see we developed a massive range of liquidation down here at $60,000. And that only gets stronger and stronger and stronger the higher Bitcoin goes. And I think of it as like taking the stairs up and then getting the elevator down. You can see each step that it's making here, and it will continue to make those steps probably until the FOMC meeting. All that we're doing here is making short positions that entered too late in the range get liquidated. But because there's not a significant amount of volume on spot pressuring the price upwards, and because there's not a significant amount of derivative pressure pressuring the price upwards, what you end up with is lots of minor levels of liquidation. So in the same way that we didn't get a capitulation wick at the bottom, it's unlikely with this kind of way the market is trading that you get a capitulation at the top. It's more likely it forms some kind of local top, struggles to break through, and then continues going back down. So we go over to the 48-hour liquidation heat map and you can see, look how bright that level is. Everyone looks at that, but that's the trap here. That's the range that we're aiming for in theory, but I'm not taking that trade because what I want to do is I want to short from $67,000 up to $69,000. The thing to understand that is it's probably going to be quite a crowded trade. There's probably going to be a lot of people that want to get in that range. And there's also a lot of shorts getting liquidated at the moment, a lot of long positions being entered. And what that's creating is that liquidity bomb that you can see on the chart. Now, the bomb itself is not that. That's the bomb. That's all that juice that's built up in this range here, because no one actually has time to long Bitcoin when it's going boop on the news. Everyone gets their long positions later on in this range here, and that's why you create these gaps in liquidity. When you end up with a bomb below the price and then a gap and then another bomb, that's what you can think of as a liquidation bomb. That's a perfect liquidation bomb, and that'll remain relevant until it triggers. And at some point, one of these yellow levels above will fail to trigger the price to go into it. When that happens and we get a rejection, kind of like what we're having right now, we'll start to eat into this range, and we'll just reverse what we've been doing the past few days. When you have what is essentially a no volume breakout, you lack the liquidity rising in the open interest structure. Now, this is the Bitcoin 1 hour open interest chart, and what we can see on this chart here is Bitcoin had a significant spike up, but we didn't experience a significant gain in liquidity. Some people would peg that as a bad thing, but what actually happened there is on the spike up, a bunch of short positions got liquidated. And what we're doing here from BlackRock's point of view, or the market driver's point of view, whoever that would be, I mean, it's basically just a bunch of Wall Street guys. When you get forced to sell or you are liquidated, somebody has to take the other side of that trade. Somebody is buying those Bitcoins that you're selling. So say, for example, you went short and then you got liquidated, you have to buy back at a higher price, and that person that you're buying off is shorting. And that's what you've got to understand. This is why the data on the website that I've made is so important. So on my website, I've made this maker-taker differentiator. And what we've been seeing with this excess taker buy pressure recently, everybody that's taker buy is funding a limit short order. And the people that place limit orders are thinking on a higher time frame, and the people that are placing taker orders are thinking on a lower time frame for shorter term. And what we're experiencing at the moment is a liquidity increase, but the bulk of that liquidity increase happened on the very first candle. However, since then, liquidity has risen about $400 million, and the price has not really risen proportionally the same, which probably means there's a little bit more upside in this current price. And when we look over at Ethereum, it's doing very similar things. Look, a little bit of an increase here in liquidity, and of course an increase in price. But it's my opinion that right now everybody is preparing for this meeting in 2 days' time where we're going to get the interest rates from the Federal Reserve. And with Bitcoin currently right now getting rejected at the bottom of the previous range, and so far failing to make it up to the peak range of liquidity at $67,000, is that $67,000 level a trap? Well, before we go on to discuss that, let's discuss today's crypto news and the traditional news, because it's getting spicy out there, and Wednesday presents potentially the biggest opportunity of your life, which is why I intend on live streaming it, even though it's about 2 o'clock in the morning Thai time. So first things first, he called him a very difficult guy. There are cracks showing in that relationship, but that relationship is going to be the reason why this peace agreement doesn't stop anything. This man's indifferent and likes money and oil. But regardless of anything, this man will always send this man money for guns. So even if America and Iran do find peace, unfortunately for Iran and the UAE and everyone in that area, they have a very not peaceful neighbour. And today, the UK, Germany and Italy are lifting sanctions on Iran. And genuinely, this is all good news, but for us as crypto, it doesn't make that significant of a difference because the money left the industry not because of Iran, it left the industry because of SpaceX. So we've still got other news headlines to deal with, such as the Democrats this next time round are going to use the fact that Trump has been nothing but milk the economy for his own personal gain since he was elected, and they're going to use that as a talking point. What do you think that does to people's opinions on Bitcoin? Like in the UK, already Keir Starmer and the Labour government are using crypto as a slur just because Nigel Farage took a donation in crypto. So they made it illegal as well. You can't no longer accept political donations in crypto. They demonise a term. They scare people away from a term. It's the same thing as what they do with weed. They go, oh, weed's a drug. What you should do is drink alcohol. But they fail to mention that hops and hemp stem from the same plant. They have the same genetics. Hops in its raw form smells quite weedy. And essentially what alcohol is a slightly different version of medical weed in a drinkable form that disinfects the liquid so that you could drink it about 1,000 years ago without getting dysentery. But because the government can regulate it, tax it, make a fortune off it, it's legal. But anyway, prices have been going down today. But Lebanon will keep getting bombed by They are saying that Hormuz might reopen soon, but oil is dropping in advance of that happening, and what I think is happening is people are front-running a market and this peace deal probably will fall apart, but they'll probably wait for it to fall apart till after the Fed meeting because they need everything to look rosy going into the Fed meeting so the Fed chair can make a bullish and positive statement that everyone can then heavily short into as the price rises up a bunch, and then they crush it next week. But we'll see how we get on with that as a theory. And yesterday I talked about this Swiss vote for capping the population at 10 million. Well, they rejected the vote. They want more than 10 million people in Switzerland. However, moving on and talking about today's crypto news, Bitcoin shoots higher on Iran peace deal with the Strait of Hormuz set to open. Bitcoin could crash to $48,000 if this historical pattern is triggered. The pattern it's talking about here is revisiting 0.618 on the Fibonacci. And even though we've got a peace agreement on the table, Trump has still warned that he might strike Iran again if he feels like it. So that's about all the news for today. And the news looks like the price. Short-term bullish, long-term bearish. Maybe we get to the white line, maybe we get to the yellow slanty line. As it is right now, on the 1 hour, we've cooked the RSI. Look at that, we've cooked it, we've come above it. Important thing to point out is traditionally when we reach the top of the RSI on the hourly, we have a significant retracement, and that would be from the level of about $64,000 down to about $62,000. So we might be about to have a retracement here. That is typically a bearish pattern that forms part of a longer and larger pattern anyway. Another important correlation to point out would be on the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, where that's the Bitcoin chart, and we can see here, when we overcook it on the 4-hour RSI, we have quite significant declines in price. We've not overcooked it yet. It still says this has got a little bit more upside to go, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this to get too high. I'm looking for Bitcoin to be at 67-ish. We'll make those calls, and I'll be posting them in the Chart Advantage Telegram group. And there's now 570 people joining me on the next $10,000 to $1 million trading challenge. The most likely day that we'll be starting that challenge is on Thursday, and if you want to get involved in it, click this link in the video description, but also click on my free Telegram because I'm using both of these groups. This will take you through to where I place all of the trades for the challenge. This will take you through to every day's analysis that's the most in-depth and best analysis on the market. And yeah, when it comes to my account balance right now, poof, $200,000 drop off. You saw that like I did then. Brutal. But I am still up $2 million from starting this, and my stop loss basically, I want to walk away with at least $1 million, but I'm prepared to go pretty deep on this. I'm quite confident that this is presenting one of potentially the best opportunities to short Bitcoin in a very long time. I just think we're not there yet, and when we get there, I want to be fully in the right mindset to take the biggest position of my life. Sure, we don't have the giga super profits anymore, we've just got giga profits, 1.7 million in open profit, but that means nothing to you, doesn't affect your life in any way. But what could do is joining the Chart Advantage Telegram and reading my analysis every day. You see, Bitcoin is still completing the wick-off accumulation pattern. There's nothing to say that that is plotted correctly. We could go as high as a retest of $70,000. Why not? It doesn't matter where you plot that level, as long as it stays below this line, it's fine, it can go anywhere. The point is, as soon as we hit the next range, in theory, if we're to go by the wick-off accumulation pattern, it should be a very severe drop-off. And when we look at Ethereum right now, Ethereum is encountering long-term levels of resistance, so it might not even break through there. But when we look at Solana, Solana's slightly different because it's actually sat on a long-term level of support. But again, if it was to lose that level of support, brutal things happen at that point in time. That's why we don't do it on the first attempt. We take a few attempts to do this. If you lost that level, You see where the next kind of key range of liquidity is for Solana. $20. And it's why I can't bring myself to buy the dip. I know that during a true bear market, you get a lot of time to buy the dip. There is no rush to jump into this market here with your money and buy the dip. There'll be plenty more opportunities in the future. And the fact that AI today, so this is Intel's stock, AI is nearly at all-time highs again. Just don't get swept up in the hype. Keep your brain straight. Eyes on the prize on you bit. Join the Chart Advantage Telegram. Drop a like on the video. Join the 10,000 to a million challenge. Notifications on as well. And I'll keep you updated on Telegram. See you in a bit. Ciao!